Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Yeah.
where we ask, visionary or con artist.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're diving into the career of Rachel Hollis,
Yes,
a self-help phenomenon who's gotten both, praise and criticism.
absolutely.
So is she a genuine force for good? Or is there something more calculated behind her brand of empowerment?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The million-dollar question. And to get to the bottom of it, we've got a pretty diverse stack of sources. Everything from Wikipedia to think pieces in Vox, Mashable. We've also got some lighter fare, like People magazine,
Right.
The List,
Okay.
which capture a lot of the public's perception of her.
Okay.
So,
Let's start at the beginning.
okay.
Rachel Hollis, remind us how she first popped up on the radar.
Well, according to Wikipedia,
Yeah.
she got her start in event planning in LA.
Okay.
With her company Chic Events. But her real claim to fame, that initial spark,
Yeah.
was a viral Instagram post back in 2015, a photo of her in a bikini celebrating her stretch marks.
Right. The Love Your Stripes campaign.
That's it.
Yeah. It definitely caught my attention, too.
Mm-hmm.
This message of body positivity, self-acceptance
Right.
felt pretty revolutionary at the time.
It was. I mean, it was a brilliant move. She tapped into a cultural moment,
Yeah.
positioning herself as a champion for women
Yeah.
and their, real unfiltered bodies.
Yeah.
And that move really laid the groundwork for everything that followed.
Because that photo led to Girl Wash Your Face.
Exactly.
Her breakout book, right?
Yeah.
Which I remember seeing it everywhere. Book clubs,
Oh, yeah.
you name it.
Target aisles.
Target aisles. God.
Published in 2018.
Yeah.
It was a mix of personal anecdotes, motivational advice.
Yeah.
The Washington Post even called it a blend of memoir and motivational advice. And it absolutely resonated with people.
Mhm.
It became a New York Times bestseller and really catapulted her to a whole new level of fame.
So what was it about her message that resonated so strongly with readers, do you think?
Well, her writing style is very conversational. It's relatable. She talks about her own struggles with self-doubt, body image,
Right.
pressures of motherhood in a way that feels very honest and vulnerable. And within that vulnerability, she weaves this message of personal responsibility and empowerment.
Yeah.
Basically, you have the power to create the life you want.
Right. Which on the surface, that's a pretty appealing message.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't want to feel like they have control over their destiny?
Exactly. And that's where it gets interesting,
Yeah.
right? Because the self-help industry is built on this promise of transformation,
Right.
of achieving happiness and success,
Yeah.
if you just follow the right steps.
Yeah.
But is it really that simple?
Well, that's what we're here to unpack.
Okay.
So post-Girl Wash Your Face things really took off for Rachel,
Yeah, they did.
didn't they? She became like a full-blown self-help mogul.
She did. We're talking more books, podcasts like Rise Together, Ratch Talk. She even co-hosted a podcast with her, at the time, husband, Dave Hollis. Conferences, retreats, a whole lifestyle brand
Wow.
called the Hollis Co. They even offered relationship retreats,
Okay.
charging a hefty $1,800 per couple. As per Mashable.
Hold on. $1,800.
Yeah.
Were they like licensed therapists or something?
Interestingly enough, no.
Oh.
Neither Rachel nor Dave had any formal training in couples counseling,
Oh, wow.
which, as you can imagine, raised some eyebrows later on.
Okay, so maybe a hint of the controversy to come.
Right.
But at this point, they were the picture of success, right?
Absolutely.
Building this empire on a foundation of empowerment.
Yep.
And seemingly living their best lives.
Totally. But, as we see with these larger-than-life figures,
Yeah.
those perfect facades, they have a tendency to crack eventually. And for Rachel Hollis, those cracks started to show with accusations of plagiarism.
Right, the plagiarism scandal. BuzzFeed News, in particular, really dug into those allegations.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a one-off thing either.
Yep.
It was multiple instances of using quotes
Mm-hmm.
from other authors without attribution.
Right.
Maya Angelou, Tim Hiller,
Yeah.
Terry Cole Whitaker. The list goes on.
The list goes on.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that this wasn't just casual borrowing of ideas.
Yeah.
We're talking word-for-word quotes.
Oh, wow.
Presented as her own, even in her book, Girl, Stop Apologizing.
Oh, the irony.
Which, ironically, encourages readers to own their mistakes.
So how did she handle those accusations? Did she own up to it?
Well, initially, her response was to blame her team.
Okay.
Which didn't exactly go over well.
Right.
She did eventually issue apologies,
Oh, wait.
but for many, the damage was already done. It cast the shadow of doubt over her authenticity. And it raised questions about whether she was truly this self-made guru she presented herself to be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and those questions about authenticity only intensified with probably the most well-known controversy of her career, the unrelatable incident.
Ah, yes. The TikTok video that practically broke the internet?
Remind us what happened there. It started with a comment about a housekeeper, right?
Yeah. It did. Someone commented on Hollis's seemingly privileged lifestyle, mentioning her housekeeper.
Right.
And in response, Hollis made this TikTok video comparing herself to Harriet Tubman, RBG, and Oprah,
Yeah.
saying they were all unrelatable, just like her.
Yikes. I remember seeing that. Just cringing. Comparing yourself to Harriet Tubman while talking about housekeepers? Not exactly a winning strategy.
It was a major misstep, to say the least. Tone deaf, lacking awareness, and as Newsweek put it, minimizing the struggles of women of color. The backlash was immediate, intense.
So damage control time again. Another apology to her.
She issued several apologies, actually,
Good.
blaming her gut reaction at first,
Right.
then taking accountability, acknowledging her privilege,
Okay.
and expressing regret for the pain she caused.
Yeah.
But the question remained, was it genuine remorse or just a calculated attempt to salvage her brand?
Because this incident, it seemed to mark a turning point in her career. The image of the relatable, empowering guru was kind of irrevocably tarnished for many people.
Absolutely. And it brought to light deeper issues with her brand of self-help, issues that had been simmering beneath the surface all along.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these controversies, they kind of force us to look beyond the surface,
Yeah.
to question the very foundations of someone's message. And in Hollis's case, the unrelatable incident really opened up this conversation about privilege,
Yeah.
authenticity, and the potential pitfalls of her brand of self-help.
So let's dive into those deeper issues. What are some of the criticisms that have been leveled against her work?
Well, one of the most common critiques, as highlighted by Vox,
Yeah.
is that her emphasis on hustle harder and individual responsibility often lacks awareness of systemic issues.
Okay.
She places a lot of emphasis on personal choice and effort as the keys to success.
Right.
But some argue that this overlooks the very real barriers that many people face due to systemic inequality.
Right. The idea that if you're not successful, it's because you're not trying hard enough, which can be a pretty damaging message.
Yeah. Especially for those who are already marginalized
Totally.
or facing significant obstacles.
And this ties into another criticism, that her message can perpetuate this unrealistic, perfect life ideal.
Right.
She often presents herself as having it all figured out, which can make her followers feel inadequate or like they're not doing enough.
And that dissonance between the curated image and reality was really amplified by her divorce from Dave Hollis in 2020.
Absolutely. Here was this couple who had built their brand on the foundation of a strong marriage
Right.
and family, promoting relationship retreats, offering advice on creating your dream life together, and then suddenly they split up. It made that picture-perfect image feel even more unattainable, out of touch for a lot of people.
So we've got plagiarism, a tone-deaf approach to privilege, and this potentially harmful perfect life narrative. But despite all of this, Rachel Hollis still has a sizable following, doesn't she?
She does.
She continues to publish books, and as Yahoo Lifestyle reported, she even went ahead with her Rise conference despite the controversy.
She did. And that's what makes her story so intriguing, right?
Yeah.
This tension between the controversies
Yeah,
and her enduring appeal. How do we reconcile those two things?
right.
Is it a testament to her resilience, her business savvy, or is it something else entirely?
Maybe a bit of blind faith on the part of her followers, a willingness to overlook the flaws because they connect so deeply with her message.
Possibly. It speaks to the power of charisma and the complexities of the self-help industry. People are often drawn to these larger-than-life figures who promise solutions, who offer a path to a better life. And it can be hard to let go of that belief, even when cracks start to appear in the facade.
So how do we navigate this landscape? As consumers of self-help content, how do we discern the genuine from the potentially harmful?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it starts with critical thinking. Don't take everything at face value, no matter how charismatic the messenger might be. Do your research, question the claims being made, and consider the potential downsides of any advice you're given.
Right. Blindly following someone else's blueprint for happiness is rarely a recipe for genuine fulfillment.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to recognize that self-help is a complex and nuanced field. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. And what works for one person might not work for another.
So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and always, always do your own due diligence.
Couldn't agree more. Now, before we wrap up our deep dive into Rachel Hollis's world, there's one more significant event we need to address: the passing of her ex-husband, Dave Hollis, earlier this year.
Right. A truly tragic event that adds another layer of complexity to this already intricate story.
Dave Hollis was a prominent figure in the self-help world himself.
Right.
He worked at Disney, co-hosted the Rise Together podcast with Rachel, even wrote his own self-help book, Get Out of Your Own Way, A Skeptic's Guide to Growth.
So they were like a power couple in the self-help space, promoting this image of success and relationship goals.
They were, and their divorce in 2020, after 18 years of marriage, sent shockwaves through their fan base. It challenged the image they had so carefully cultivated and added fuel to the growing criticisms of their message.
And then in February of this year, Dave Hollis unexpectedly passed away at his home in Texas at the age of 47. The list reported that while the cause of death was not officially confirmed, it was potentially linked to heart problems and a history of substance abuse.
A devastating loss, to be sure. And in the wake of his death, Rachel Hollis took to Instagram to express her grief, asking fans to keep their 4 children in their thoughts during this difficult time.
Yeah, it's understandable that such a tragedy would evoke sympathy, compassion, even from those who had previously criticized her. It humanizes her. Reminds us that behind the brand and the controversy, she's a grieving mother navigating an unimaginable loss.
It does, and it raises these interesting questions about how this event might shape her legacy moving forward. Will it lead to a more nuanced and compassionate view of her? Will she shift her messaging to embrace vulnerability and authenticity more openly? Only time will tell.
So as we reflect on all that we've learned about Rachel Hollis, the meteoric rise, the controversies, the complexities of her message, and the personal tragedies, what stands out to you as the most significant takeaway?
I think for me, it's a reminder that we should be wary of putting anyone on a pedestal, especially those selling us easy answers to complex problems.
Because those easy answers often come with a hefty price tag,
Yeah.
both literally and figuratively.
Precisely. The self-help industry is a multi-billion-dollar business, and while there are certainly genuine voices offering valuable insights, there are also those who are more interested in profits than genuine transformation.
And that's where critical thinking comes in. We need to be discerning consumers, questioning the motives, the methods, and the messages of those we choose to follow.
Absolutely. Because ultimately, the journey of self-improvement is a deeply personal one. It's about finding what works for you, what aligns with your values, and what empowers you to live a more authentic and fulfilling life.
Yeah, it's interesting. We often seek guidance and inspiration from these people that just, seem to have it all figured out.
Right.
But as we've seen with Rachel Hollis, that image of perfection can be incredibly fragile.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that we're all human, even those who build their careers on this promise of transformation and self-improvement.
And that those who preach self-love and empowerment might still be wrestling with their own demons.
Exactly. And that's not necessarily a bad thing either. It's just a reminder to approach these figures with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right.
And to recognize that their journeys are just as messy and complicated as our own.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Rachel Hollis,
Yeah.
I'm left wondering, what's the lasting impact of her work? Will she be remembered as a positive force who helped millions to embrace their potential?
Right.
Or will the controversies overshadow her message?
That's a question that only time can answer. Her legacy is still being written, but I think her story offers some valuable lessons for both consumers and creators of self-help content.
What lessons come to mind for you?
Well, for creators, I think it highlights the importance of authenticity
Okay.
and integrity. Building a brand on a carefully curated persona that doesn't reflect your true self
Right.
is ultimately a recipe for disaster.
Because those cracks in the facade will inevitably show,
Oh, yeah.
especially in the age of social media where everything is so scrutinized.
Right. Everything's amplified.
Yeah.
And for consumers, I think it just reinforces the importance of critical thinking and discernment.
Yeah.
Don't just blindly accept everything you hear, no matter how appealing the message might be.
Do your research, consider different perspectives, and trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, self-improvement isn't a destination.
Right.
It's a journey. There's no magic formula, no quick fix. It's about continuous learning, growth, and self-discovery.
And that journey is often messy, imperfect, and full of setbacks. But it's also incredibly rewarding and empowering, and ultimately uniquely our own.
So as we conclude this episode of Grifter or Gifted, we leave you with this question. What are your takeaways from the Rachel Hollis saga?
Do you see her as a visionary or a con artist? Or perhaps, as is often the case with complex human beings, a bit of both?
Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's continue the conversation.
And until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.